A critical draft for the White Sox is less than 2 weeks away. Let's discuss reasonable expectations and how cautiously optimistic about the future you should be with my guest on today's episode of Locked On White Sox.
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, I'm your host, Todd Welter, a lifelong Sox fan, a contributor for SouthsideShowdown.com, part of the Fansided Network, and also I've covered Major League Baseball for outlets such as the Associated Press. And thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Make sure to hit the like button on today's episode. Subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox if you've not done so already, and also follow and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. Well, I like OnTapSportsNet's.com's Bez's view on having a realistic approach to the White Sox future, so I figured, why not bring him on the show to discuss the appropriate level of caution regarding the White Sox future, reasonable expectations about the draft that's coming up soon, and why the White Sox should not make any trades before the end of the month. And this episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. All right, Bez, thanks for joining me. So I wanted to get you on just because I wanted to get the check-in of, first of all, where is this team at when it comes to being fun bad? Because you've been waging a good war, the good fight on social media.
I cannot accept fun. I cannot accept fun bad. That doesn't work for me. What I can accept is fun horrible, fun terrible, but they are much, much worse than bad. When you have the worst road record in baseball at 9-32, and you're pacing for 52-ish wins, you're much worse than bad.
So we were actually talking off camera before I hit record here, and this is another way to just measure, like, where should you be cautiously optimistic about the future? White Sox All-Star representative. As we're recording this, obviously Shane Smith has not pitched. It's going to run. This will run tomorrow, but if Shane Smith doesn't have a good outing, I mean, you're looking at what? Adrian Hauser potentially being the All-Star representative, and that just shows you that, man, they got a lot more pieces to add.
They've got a long way to go. It is looking more so like our All-Star selection instead of being a deserving person based on a couple of bad starts by Shane, and he's got his work cut out for him tonight against the Dodgers lineup that just matches everybody. So it's looking more so like a charity case selection as opposed to a deserving one. And Adrian Hauser might surpass him. We still got a couple of starts here left to go before the deadline. So that's kind of where it's trending. And Miguel Vargas, his season started out kind of slow, and now he's not really getting anything to hit. So it's not looking like it'll be him. It's looking like it's going to be one of those two pitchers.
Yeah, although the one thing that it could be is I have seen, where guys start to little tail off before the All-Star break, but they still get in because of the body of work, because, players and managers tend to, look at maybe what they did in April, May, and still vote a minimum. I remember Derek Turnbow with the Milwaukee Brewers. He got an invite, and he was starting to fall apart before he got recognition, so I could see that. But when it comes to being optimistic about the future, again, everybody's very optimistic, even I am, but what is the appropriate level of just being cautiously optimistic right now?
The appropriate level. I mean, that's really up to you. Who be it from me to say how optimistic that you want to be. Go for it. I mean, to me, I want to look at context. I want to look at a team sample size, a player sample size before I make any judgments. When I look at something like Shane Smith, who has the highest F-WAR amongst our starting pitchers, has the lowest F-WAR amongst the best starting pitchers of the teams in the AL Central. So if you kind of look at that from the terms of that's our ace is the worst ace of the worst division in baseball. So little things like that put things into perspective to me of how far away we are. I like Shane Smith. When I say things like this on social media, I get attacked for being a negative and being a hater and wanting the White Sox to fail instead of being. I'd rather be right than the White Sox be good. And none of those things are true. I'm as big of a fan as anybody. But I am very cautiously optimistic during these days where we have patchwork rosters held together by duct tape and dreams of prospects that we think about that we hope are going to be good. So it's duct tapes and dreams for me, but anybody else can do what they choose.
Yeah, the other reason why I wanted to get you on to talk about it, I mean, there's been a couple of tweets, not your tweets, but other tweets that have started to reemerge. Like I saw Cold Takes Exposed had that tweet from 2020 where MLB's like the White Sox future is bright, and it had, with all the guys that were signed through Yoan Moncada and Eloy Jimenez, and they even mentioned Dallas Keuchel and Yasmani Grandal, and it's going to be so great. And then we live through that, and I think sometimes we look at that through the prism of, you're just bringing up bad memories, this is going to be different, when it's like you just want to make sure lessons are learned. And right now it sometimes seems like the lessons are learned and then sometimes not. Like, say, having Luis Robert Jr. still be on the active roster, when it was like maybe he should have just went on the IL right away.
Yeah, I mean, they were able to backdate that IL to the day that they sat him down. But the farm system is finally resembling something where it was in tatters a couple of years ago. There's at least some structure and some guys in the org now that know what real development looks like in Ryan Fuller and Brian Bannister. So those are hopeful things for the future. So I'm cautiously optimistic of what's next, but I just hope, and I think the first time you had me on this show about a year ago, I said, this is going to take a while. Okay. Like, those structural changes are good, but that's not going to bear fruit for a while. And if you really move the needle in the standings, it comes from spending on big time free agents who can really move the needle on offense. This is still one of the worst offenses in baseball, probably the worst in a couple of categories. So not a whole lot of difference there from last year to this year. So, you take the lessons from the last time and hope that, I mean, for me personally, I can't speak for anybody else, but I'm still, despite the changes and some things looking different, this is still a rebuild. There are rebuilds who, look at the Orioles. 3 years ago, the Orioles were going to be baseball's next big dynasty. I've got the tweets to prove it because I've fought with Orioles fans online. And they have made the playoffs 3 seasons in a row, and they are 0-6, and they are looking like they're not even going to make the playoffs this year. So that's why I'm cautiously optimistic and why people should be.
Yeah, I mean, you can have everything looking all sunshine and rainbows. I mean, think about even the Cubs. They were talking about how, they got one of the greatest systems, and now you're talking about, like, do they even have the horses to get the starting pitchers that they need? Do they have, really good prospects to get that third baseman that they need? I was just hearing that on 670 The Score right now. Like, it can, change on a dime on that, and that's why it can't hurt to just have these check-ins to say, hey, how hopeful you are, and just to give, some fans, hey, fan how you want, but here's a suggestion, because you just don't want to potentially have what seems like to be with the White Sox history, ebbs and flows. And when it ebbs, it's pretty good. But when, or when it goes high, it's pretty good. But when it craters, oh my gosh,
Right.
It craters like where you get kicked in the groin, like without getting kicked in the groin.
The franchise has a well-earned reputation of not being able to sustain a successful run, evident by the fact that they've got 11 playoff appearances in 125 years, and only one time, and it was a shortened quarter of a season because of the pandemic, did they ever make the playoffs in back-to-back seasons. So I've got 125 years of history on my side about being cautious.
All right, quick timeout for those listening via Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast, but I'll be back with more of my conversation with Bez of OnTapSportsNet.com. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is a reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And think about it. You don't got time to waste going through an automated system. You got to get the job done right, and you need the right part. So Supply House wants to make sure you are taken care of. And for the trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Join the thousands of skilled professionals already taking advantage, and now it's your turn. And I've been telling my brother-in-law, he's in the plumbing business, convince your company to use Supply House with all the advantages that they have and great customer service they offer. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter. Again, make sure to hit the like button on today's episode and subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox if you've not done so already. And if you can't catch the show on YouTube, Locked On White Sox is available on all major podcast platforms, so make sure to follow or subscribe on places such as Apple or Spotify. Either way, get your 30-minute fix of Chicago White Sox baseball venting with me. And let's jump back into my conversation with Bez of OnTapSportsNet.com. Yeah, and also, 43 years with an owner who then says, well, I still want to stick around for 5 more years. That says, I'm not going to spend enough. I mean, that's been the biggest thing, how you brought up the spending. It's Jerry has spent, on certain things, but it's not enough. That will always be the biggest thing and that's the thing that you hope for and that's where you're saying this is going to take a while. It might take, a while too, because in 5 years, then maybe you finally get the rich hobbyist owner that we don't know what type of owner he's going to be in Justin Ishbia.
Yep. That is a big question mark. And he's going to be under Jerry's wing for the next 5 to 9 years, learning the ropes, learning negotiations and labor agreements. So that'll be interesting to see what of Jerry's way of doing business rubs off on him, and the way the landscape of the league changes as a result of those upcoming discussions. So yeah, I mean, he has spent, I think we had a payroll over 200 million a couple of years in a row, or at least 1 year, but you're not spending on superstars. You're not going out. You've never given out a contract that's 20 million per year average annual value, and you've never gone past 5 years. Look at what these guys are getting. I mean, they're getting 10-year, $350 million deals. You're not even close on that, on the average annual value or the years. You're halfway. You're barely halfway there. So yeah, that's great that they went out and spent 200 million, as people always throw that in my face. Well, they had a $220 million payroll. Well, yeah, they spent it all on relievers because you can't go out and get, Bryce Harper for 10 years, 330.
Yeah. And none of that, or again, they spent it in just one bulk, and then they spent it on the wrong people. Dallas Keuchel, who, remember, it was never his fault. His stuff was good. He wasn't the one that was the problem.
It was
or again, Yasmani Grandal, who sounded like he was Yasmani Grandal sounds more and more like the worst human being that you would ever possibly come across. And then how you had all these, toxic issues. I mean, you got Clint Frazier basically, shining a spotlight on foul territory about how things were so bad that's why it's like, you just hope that somebody at 35th and Shields is listening. And there are days where it's like, yes, Chris Getz looks like he's listening, looks like he's learning, all that stuff. And then there are days where it's like, oh my gosh, we're going to have Mike Clevenger probably back up in August.
And yeah, when I saw that they released, and here's another case. They just released Nick Nastrini, who we thought had big upside and potential to be a middle of the rotation starter. He just got released. He couldn't even get out of AAA. He's got like a 7 ERA. So another cautionary tale there. And yeah, it ebbs and flows, like you said.
Yeah, I'm going to get to I want to actually circle back to Nastrini in the final segment about this. But let's get into the draft, because one other area that I've been saying where, again, it may take a while, but if you still have this owner for the next 5 years, it's the draft. I would say the next 2 drafts and last year's drafts are probably going to be the most critical for the organization's future. And I know how much you love your prospects and you love that draft stuff. Why is it important to stay level-headed when it comes to the Sox draft, though?
We're going to hear a lot of takes on draft night. We're going to hear hot takes. We're going to hear tepid takes, but most of these guys are years away is the thing that you have to remember. Don't overreact. They're lottery tickets. They've got tools. They've got traits. They're going to make lists. So if they draft someone you've never heard of, or the guy that you didn't have your eye on or read the hype about, don't overreact. Don't crown them. Don't crown them either if it's the guy that you did want. So just let it breathe. whoever the White Sox take, just let it breathe and see, evaluate it in a couple of years. It's not like football where, these guys are expected to step in day one and be starters. And, to some extent, the NBA, it takes a lot of patience, everything in this sport, everything in a rebuild. So let it play out.
All right, let's play it though from this angle. The one thing where you could potentially get immediate is starting pitching, especially in the first round. If you can develop, you're seeing Chase Burns already get to the major league level for the Reds. Who knows about Hagen Smith? Again, the White Sox take him because, in essence, Brian Bannister, one of the smart people, said, well, if you're going to be trading Garrett Crochet, we got to replace him. But then at the same time, you pass on Jack Caglione and Connor Griffin, who maybe they look like they're going to be potential superstars. Although for Hagen Smith, there's a lot of promise for him to be a very good pitcher too, and a very good player. So I'm not discounting that, but you think about it though, almost in a way they had to draft to reach a floor rather than why don't you take a big swing? And that's where I'm kind of hoping that they do this, in 2 weeks, take a big swing.
I'm totally with you on that. And for multiple reasons is if you're not going to take a big swing when you've lost 121 games, you're going to probably lose about 110 this year. If you're not going to take a big gamble now, then when? And we are talking again, 2 years in a row of being one of the worst offenses in baseball. So let's try to get some bats that can hit for power. I know that we've got some prospects that on the position player side that look a lot better. I have liked what I've seen from William Bergoya. Guys that Jacob Gonzalez is starting to turn a corner in AA as well. So you've got some guys there, but you don't have a lot of power. So go after someone who can slug, because here's the thing about pitching to me is you can always find pitching, and maybe Mr. Reinsdorf isn't going to spend at the top of the market, and granted, he has not had a good year, but you can go out and sign a Luis Severino, because guys of that caliber that the White Sox can't afford in free agency for 4 years at a reasonable average annual value, they can target those guys. And look at what they've found this year. Adrian Hauser out of nowhere. Shane Smith out of nowhere. From the Rule 5 draft, Mike Vassell was a guy that was roster runoff from the Rays because they weren't going to be able to keep him on their 26-man all year.
And a Rule 5 draft.
Yeah. These are guys that you can find pitchers. Hitters are very hard to come by. That's why they cost $1 billion when they hit the open market. And so if you can't sign them, then you have to draft them and develop them.
Yeah, and I like how you brought up too, like again, Jacob Gonzalez for William Bergola, and I want to actually talk about William Bergola in the next segment. But Jacob Gonzalez, that's another example of they went for more of a high floor guy. Which, by the way, this rebuild, and you and I have talked about on social media, this rebuild does need raised ceiling and raised floor guys too, just as much as they need superstars. I mean, you want more 1.52 FWAR guys that are at your baseline rather than what we've been seeing, 0.5. 0, negative, that type of stuff.
Yep.
But that's where I'm hoping to take a swing. Although on the flip side, I don't mind if they were, say, Jamie Arnold falls to them. That's a very talented pitcher, another left-hander from Florida State.
Sure.
That type of stuff. Say he's there, or Liam Doyle. Those are going to be really tough guys to pass up because you are at number 10, and it sounds like you are going to be taking. It sounds like there's it's not generational talent, but it sounds like it's a draft where there's 10 to 12 very good baseball players, and it sounds like the White Sox would be left over with the guy that's left over. So if that's the case, but on the flip side, it is just then the only way you can mitigate it is then you better take a bigger swing than in the second round like they did with Caleb Bonemer.
Yeah, and take a big swing like they did in I believe it's the second round with Grant Taylor, who looks fantastic. He was a guy who was hurt, and that's why he dropped out of the first round. And now that is looking like I will go ahead and say it. I'm higher on him than Smith and Schultz. I think he's going to be a better starting pitcher than both of those guys. That's just my opinion based on, just watching them pitch the little bit that I do. So hopefully if they do go the pitching route and you have a team that's stacked with pitching in the system and you become a pitching factory like the Brewers or the Guardians, then you've got to start thinking about when you're going to trade some of these guys for bats. if you don't have those big time middle of the order bats that
Quick time out for those listening via Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast, but I'll be back with more of my conversation with Bez from OnTapSportsNet.com after the break. Ever wish managing your money felt easier with Monarch Money? It can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control of your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. I'm using Monarch Money to help me save up for retirement, as I'd like to avoid working until I'm like 75. And it's really helping me show just how much extra I've been spending on things like streaming and ordering takeout, those little things that can just really drain your bank account just little by little. And my wife, she's much more relaxed knowing that she can use Monarch Money to help with the budgeting. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. Welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter. Again, shout out to all the everydayers. I appreciate your loyalty. Please hit the like button on today's episode. Recommend to your fellow Sox fans or baseball fans, friends, to subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox or wherever they get their podcasts, as this show is available on all major podcast platforms. Let's jump back into my conversation with Bez of OnTapSportsNet.com. But the one route that will definitely be cut off to the White Sox when it comes to adding talent is, I believe, the trade market, especially now with Luis Robert Jr.'s trade value probably being nearly, Billy Hamilton levels. That's what I just keep thinking. I mean, because he can hit left-handed pitching great, and he can run, and he can play defense. Guess who can play defense really well and run? Billy Hamilton too, and that that type of stuff. So you have actually made the case too, and I know the guy Ken Wu, that he's made the case. Probably not a good idea to actually trade a lot of these veterans.
No, I mean, to me, it's obviously Robert. Like you said, he's basically a fourth outfielder at this point. It's a below. I made the comparison. You said Billy Hamilton. I like that. I said Adam Engel. I mean, that's basically who he is right now. That's what you're trading. But he has some upside. So when I look at it and say, okay, at the end of this month, by the trade deadline, he's going to still be owed about $5 million this year. And you know that his floor is good speed, good defense, probably even almost elite on both accounts. But the bat is below average. So as a contender, maybe the White Sox eat a little bit of that cash and you get like an organization's 7th to 10th best prospect. Obviously, mileage varies there because some systems are better than others. But if that is the best deal on the table, I'm taking it. I'm absolutely taking it. There is no way in hell. I know some people are talking about picking up the option. There is absolutely no way in hell I'm picking up $20 million for basically Adam Engel and hoping that he bounces back to something close to his 2023 numbers, and he'll have to stay healthy to do it, which has been a problem. So unfortunately, if you don't want to take a deal in 4 weeks, then you are just letting him walk. I know some people have said, well, just re-sign him if he hits the open market. Honestly, if I was him, I would want the change of scenery. I mean, in his last this year and the last two, I mean, he's probably played on over 300 losses. So he needs the change of scenery. That's not going to happen. Now you've got some other guys like Aaron Civale, who I thought was a really prudent pickup when they got him because you needed an innings eater. That was supposed to be Martin Perez, but Perez is probably done for the season. They haven't explicitly said that. And then you got Cannon went to the IL. Now Davis Martin went to the IL. Cannon is back. You found Adrian Hauser, and they go and get Civale. I'm like, good, because you don't want your young arms to get overextended and overexposed as we get through the dog days of summer here, because these guys are getting close to their innings limits. The thing was, after they made that deal, I think it was Nightingale or one of the other national guys who said that the White Sox intend to trade him at the deadline. And you kind of start to have to look at these things a little bit differently, because realistically, what are you going to get for Aaron Civale? I mean, contenders at the deadline are looking to load up on middle to high end rotation guys. Maybe they want an innings eater as a fifth starter, but it's not a guy that's going to help them in the playoffs. It's just, you'll get, peanuts less
Andrew
than what
Vaughn.
you. Yeah, exactly. You're going to get a quad A player for him. So what's more valuable? To me, it's the guy that is going to be here for the rest of the year to bolster the rotation and eat up innings through the rest of the year, so that guys like Cannon and Martin and Shane Smith don't get overexposed, because they're going to be gassed. I mean, Shane Smith is already gassed, it looks like to me. I mean, I can't confirm that, but that's the way that he's pitching. It would lead you to believe that. And then there are many others that kind of fall into that same boat. And let me say one other thing here is, if every deadline, 2023, 2024, this year, if you are just going to unload all of your players and anyone and everyone is up for sale, well, then guess what? Their value is going to go down over time, because other teams' front offices are going to say, well, we always know that the White Sox will unload and they'll have their annual yard sale and we can get anybody we want for nothing. So you got to kind of play the long game here and not have the yard sale. You got to look at it more as like a war, like when in Rounders, when Mike McD says, you got to think of it as a war. You got to, you're not going to have a great hand every single time, but you've got to maximize what you have there. And sometimes, folding is better than putting your chips in the middle.
Yeah, and I think context also plays a role, at least for this year's team. Or last year, yeah, moving on from Eric Fetty was probably good because you had absolutely nothing, even though you had another year. But this year, for example, you have Mike Talkman. He's under control for next year. Why not keep him around for A, his leadership, B, Braden Montgomery's probably still another year, probably still going to need another full year in the minors. So why not? He's the perfect bridge guy to have in right field. And then maybe if he's still hitting well, then you trade him next year. I mean, I'm sure the Cubs will still need Slug. I've heard that,
Yeah.
being kicked around that he goes back to the Cubs, but it's like he might be more valuable being that veteran leader right now. It's the same context. Adrian Hauser and Civale. Yeah, they could maybe get you something, but it's just something. The only two, there's only three guys to me that I have the standard for, and it's got to be still a William Bergolla standard. Dan Altavilla, Steven Wilson, because I don't think you're ever bringing them back, and why would you entertain bringing them back? And then, like you said, just get whatever you can for Luis Robert Jr., because, yeah, you're not going to pay him the $20 million option. You're going to give him $2 million to go away, and then you're banking on, well, will he take the $5 million make good with us? Because that's what that's his value right now. That's what Yohan Moncada got.
Yep.
I think, what was it? Well, he's better than Eloy. I mean, Eloy had no value besides slug, and he couldn't do that anymore. He's more in the, he's more in the Yohan Moncada. So the $5 million, he can get that from any team. So those are basically the three guys that I would want to see traded. The rest of them, it is the context of even Michael A. Taylor. He will help you catch the ball late in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's another thing to consider with young pitchers, is having some strong defense behind them so that they don't lose confidence in the pitching that they're, still developing and working on. That's another thing to, there's nothing worse than all of a sudden somebody dropping a ball and, the whole start just implodes, where you go from, wow, you could have gotten through that sixth inning allowing one run, and all of a sudden it implodes to four. That's got to drive pitchers crazy. So yeah, I mean, there's these other, there's all these other little things on the side that are still valuable to what these guys can do to the team. You also have to look at certain things like, with Talkman, I'm a bit on the fence because he's got some bad hamstrings. He's DHing tonight because he can't really run. It looks like a struggle out there. He's going to be 35 next year. You could still hold on to him for the rest of the season. And like you said, he's under team control, so you can still trade him in the offseason. So yeah, I mean, there's a few different angles there with Talkman. And then you got guys like Austin Slater, and, even if you hold on to Slater and you hold on to Taylor, you can, or if you trade them, you can still try to re-sign them in the offseason. They haven't been that bad.
Yeah, I mean, they've been valuable. I mean, that's the thing. This is a context where, and I get that they're in acclimation mode, but it isn't like it was in 2024 where they just had nothing and it was like, yeah, just get whoever you can. Get get, William Bergolla. Let's get this guy, Drell Perez. We'll take Alexander Albertus in that trade, even though he's got a broken leg. We're just going to get whatever we can, as many scratch offs. Now you're at the point where you've at least got a little bit more where you do want to take a look at the intangibles. And again, where Adrian Hauser, if I were Chris Getz, I would have a high price tag, even though it's unrealistic. I would have a high price tag. Like I said, just going back to the bullpen, the only reason why I would say yes, trade, if you get a good offer for a bullpen, it's because, those are the guys that were getting good offers for last year. Those were the guys that were at least getting top 30 prospects, because the other thing that's being missed is no top 100 prospect got traded last year. And I don't think that's going to happen this year too, because we don't know what the future CBA is going to look like. So you can see a lot of teams are prospect hoarding because they don't know what the future is going to look like.
Yeah, there's that. And there is, I don't have the tweet, but it was somewhere in the 80 percentages where they looked at all these trades from the deadline over like the last 5 to 10 years, and like over 80% of them were just garbage in, garbage out. So you have to take that into account too, is that a lot of the trades just don't really work out. You don't really get what you want. But to your point, the Tanner Banks deal is a pretty good template. I feel good about that. Like if you can get a William Bergolla, a guy who's like a 8 to 10 in a minor league system who has some upside, you do it. I do miss Tanner Banks a little bit. I'm a Tanner Banks fan. I love the story of how he got here, and now he's all of a sudden turned into just from a solid story to just solid reliever. But you don't regret making a deal like that.
That wraps up this edition of Locked On White Sox. Thank you for making Locked On White Sox your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long, get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. I'll be back tomorrow to do a Throwback Thursday segment, since I pushed back way back Wednesday for my discussion with Bez today. And feel free to leave comments about today's discussion with Bez from OnTapSportsNet.com. You can leave them at the episode page on YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, at Todd J. Dub, or at Locked On Sox, or you can email me at LockedOnWhiteSox@gmail.com. Have a great day, and I will see you tomorrow.